Tragedy strikes again. Johnny could lose Chanel and the baby. Days of our lives spoilers that will leave fans shattered. Salem has always been a town where happiness is fleeting and tragedy lurks just around the corner. For every wedding, there's a funeral. For every new beginning, there's a devastating loss waiting to strike. And now, just when Johnny D'Imera and Chanel Dupree believed they were finally stepping into a future filled with hope, love, and the promise of new life, fate may be preparing to tear everything away. Because tragedy is striking again. And this time, Johnny could lose everything. For Johnny D'Imera, the past few years have been a roller coaster of heartbreak, identity struggles, and painful reckonings with his family legacy. Being a D'Imera has never been easy, but being Sami Brady's son on top of that made his journey even more complicated. He fought hard to define himself outside of the chaos, manipulation, and darkness that had shaped so many members of his family. Chanel Dupree became his anchor. Their love story was far from simple, filled with breakups, misunderstandings, and moments when it seemed like they were doomed to repeat Salem's long history of failed romances. Yet somehow, against all odds, Johnny and Chanel kept finding their way back to each other. And then came the miracle. Chanel's pregnancy changed everything. Suddenly, their world wasn't about past mistakes or family feuds, it was about building something new. A family. A future. A chance to do better than the generations before them. For the first time, Johnny allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, happiness wasn't a temporary illusion. But Salem never allows joy to last. At first, the signs were subtle, easy to ignore, easy to explain away. Chanel felt unusually tired. Morning sickness lingered longer than expected. There were moments when her smile didn't quite reach her eyes, when she paused mid-sentence as if catching her breath. She insisted she was fine, brushing off Johnny's concerns with playful sarcasm and reassurance. Johnny wanted to believe her. He needed to believe her. But deep down, a familiar knot of dread began to form in his stomach, the same feeling he'd experienced before every major tragedy in his life. Something was wrong. And soon, Salem's worst fears would begin to surface. What was supposed to be a routine prenatal appointment quickly turns into a moment that sends shockwaves through Johnny and Chanel's world. The doctor's tone shifts. The smiles fade. Words like abnormal, complications, and high risk hang heavily in the air. Chanel tries to stay calm, squeezing Johnny's hand as the doctor explains that there are concerning signs with the pregnancy, signs that require immediate testing, monitoring, and possibly hospitalization. Johnny feels like the ground is disappearing beneath his feet. This isn't supposed to happen. Not to them. Not after everything they've been through. As Chanel is wheeled away for further tests, Johnny is left alone in the exam room, staring at the ultrasound image that had once filled him with joy. Now, it feels like a cruel reminder of how much he stands to lose. Alone with his thoughts, Johnny begins to spiral. He questions everything. Did stress play a role? Did his family drama put too much pressure on Chanel? Is this his fault for not protecting her enough? Johnny has spent his entire life watching the people he loves suffer because of the D'Imera name. And now, the fear that his legacy may have put Chanel, and their unborn child, in danger becomes almost unbearable. I promised you I'd keep you safe, he whispers, his voice breaking. But promises don't mean much in Salem. While Johnny wrestles with guilt, Chanel is facing her own private terror. Lying in a hospital bed, surrounded by machines and hushed voices, she tries to stay strong, but fear creeps in. Memories of loss resurface. Painful reminders of how fragile happiness can be. She's terrified, not just for the baby, but for Johnny. Because she knows what this would do to him. If something happens, if they lose the baby, if she doesn't make it, Johnny might never recover. And that thought hurts more than anything else. As doctors continue testing, one grim possibility begins to loom larger than the rest. Chanel's condition may be worsening faster than expected. There is talk of emergency procedures, of difficult choices, of outcomes no one wants to say out loud. And suddenly, the unthinkable question arises. Could Johnny be forced to choose between Chanel and the baby? The mere suggestion is enough to shatter him. Johnny explodes, demanding answers, demanding certainty. But in Salem, certainty is a luxury no one gets. News spreads quickly through Salem. Ali rushes to the hospital, fear written across her face. EJ tries to maintain control, but even he can't hide his worry when it comes to his son. Melina offers comfort, though her eyes betray the knowledge that she's seen this kind of tragedy too many times before. And then there's the D'Imera shadow. Johnny can't help but wonder if fate is punishing him for being who he is. For every D'Imera sin of the past, In a quiet hospital chapel, Johnny finally breaks. Tears stream down his face as he prays, not as a DI mirror, not as Sami Brady's son, but simply as a man desperate to save the woman he loves. "Please," he whispers. "Don't take them from me." For once, Johnny would give up power, pride, even his name, if it meant keeping Chanel and their child safe. But Salem doesn't bargain kindly. Just when it seems like things couldn't get worse, alarms begin to sound. Doctors rush into Chanel's room. Johnny is pushed aside as chaos erupts. Words blur together, blood pressure dropping, fetal distress. "We need to move now." Johnny watches helplessly as Chanel is wheeled into surgery. The doors slam shut. And time stands still. Minutes stretch into hours. Johnny paces the hallway, replaying every moment of their relationship. The laughter, the fights, the promises, the dreams they shared for their future. He imagines teaching his child to ride a bike. Family dinners. Ordinary moments that suddenly feel impossibly precious. And with each passing second, the fear grows that none of it will ever happen. When the doctor finally steps out, Johnny's heart nearly stops. The look on their face is unreadable. Johnny braces himself for the worst. Because in Salem, tragedy rarely knocks, it crashes through the door.